Hello, and welcome to the MintGox podcast, the podcast where we talk about Bitcoin, gaming, Lightning, and get our guests to do a lap around Satoshi Village. But more on that later. I know I always say this, but today I have a special guest. I'm really excited to have him on. It's Peter McCormack from the What Bitcoin Did podcast. But before I bring Peter on, I was going to do a little shout out to our sponsors. So let me just screen share here. Here we go. So our first sponsor is MintGox. Well, this is the MintGox podcast, so make sure to join us this Sunday for MintGox. MintGox is a gaming and esports kind of Bitcoin online, basically online event. For 2 to 3 hours, everybody comes online. We play a bunch of games, and we basically try and give away 10 million Satoshis. So that is this Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. There's a bunch of games you can play from Saratobi, Turbo 84, and of course, we are doing a Counter-Strike tournament, a CSGO tournament. So make sure to tune in for that. Also, a big thank you to Zebedee. Zebedee has launched their new product, Infuse, and Infuse lets you play Counter-Strike for Bitcoin. It's really easy to get set up. You just need to download Counter-Strike from Steam, which is free, and then you can download Infuse from zebedee.io.infuse, and you'll be able to join Bitcoin Infuse servers and compete with other players for Bitcoin prizes. So definitely check out Zebedee Infuse and start playing Counter-Strike. So big thanks to our sponsors there. Now I'm just going to get Peter on board and say hello to him. I believe we are streaming, just to get a sound check. I think we're okay. Let me know if there are any audio issues. Cool. Awesome. Okay. Hey Peter, welcome to the podcast. How's it going, man?
Good, man. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
Again. It's in Tokyo.
Exactly. Well, I think we actually met twice. I think we bumped into each other at a conference briefly. But you know what conferences are like.
I just remember Tokyo because my son absolutely loved that meal. I can't name it. You took me for that meal, and he loved cooking the bits of meat on the grill. And he's like, we were talking about it the other day. Actually, he was telling me, "Oh, Dad, I love that."
Yakiniku. That was one of the reasons I actually moved to Japan. The first time I went there was with university, and I kind of tried that. It's just like, for people who don't know, Japan has an all-you-can-eat meat barbecue, and it often comes with all-you-can-drink beer, and it's fairly cheap as well. It's like like maybe like $30 or something. So yeah,
Wow, I loved it, and he loved it.
yeah. Hopefully someday I'll be able to go back there. I know there are some like Kraken is opening up there, and I've heard rumors about conferences in Japan. So I'm looking forward to that once the world returns to
Well,
normal.
I do want to go back. I do want to go back. I had such a good time. Was that my second time? I'm trying to remember. That was my second time in Japan because I'd been a previous time to interview Roger Ver.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah. Maybe we'll get onto that. I wanted to let you know something you might not be aware of, but you're kind of somewhat accidentally responsible for the for the re-emergence of the Tokyo Bitcoin meetup. You're coming to Japan. Yeah.
Why? It's because you did the get together. You organised that get together for me.
Yeah, well, the
Oh,
Tokyo Bitcoin meetup, it kind of is, it's a weird story. So Roger Ver, he was the organizer of the Tokyo Bitcoin meetup. I think it was like the first Bitcoin meetup or maybe the second, but he was the organizer of it. So he kind of did it. And then there was a whole block war scaling debate, and the meetup kind of fractured into like a Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin meetup. But for whatever reason, Roger didn't let go control of the Bitcoin meetup, so nobody could kind of form it. And it kind of dissolved. And it was basically myself and Nicola Dorier and a few other people would meet in a cafe. But then when you came, we actually had a little get together to kind of have dinner with Peter and a bunch of people, like just Bitcoin enthusiasts in Tokyo that we had never met each other. We all kind of joined and had dinner, and then we kind of from that we actually just continued it really without you and started to have
nice.
these weekly, monthly Bitcoin meetups. So yeah,
That's very cool. Yeah. Well, it's great to meet you all. I had a great time. I mean, I like Tokyo. It's a weird place, but I like it a lot.
what did you find weird about it?
What did I find weird about it? I felt in the hotels uh, I was treated too well, like an
Yeah.
absolute king. It was just just wasn't used to that.
Yeah, good
Um,
service.
yeah, yeah, but like too much. It was too like I felt like they were servants. It was just too much
I
for
know what you
me.
mean. Yeah. So,
Um,
so sometimes people, it
uh,
makes you feel bad that they're kind of doing everything for you. You kind of it. It's like too
yeah,
polite can be rude.
and also it's hard to explain. I just felt like at some point I felt like I was living in the future. You probably know. You already know what I mean by coming back to England and thinking, "Oh God, I'm in the past now."
It's a bit weird because I've been living in Japan for like a bit over 10 years, so I kind of got, I guess I went native, they call it, right? Kind of
Mm,
got used to it, and then it wasn't coming back to England because I hadn't come back to England for a while. It was going to America. I just felt like
right.
going back in. Just like, why is everywhere so dirty, and why are there so many homeless people? And why don't things work? And then
Yeah.
going back to
Yeah.
Japan, it's
Everything
like,
just works in Japan.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess there's like, I think Japan's a great place if you're there as a guest. You kind of see all the good things, right? You kind of get the great
Mm,
service, everything's clean. But Nicola Dore, when he was on the podcast, he talked about this. If you're actually Japanese, you have to. It's so good because they work crazy, right?
mm.
The responsibility to them is insane, and for Japanese people, it's actually pretty tough. So a lot of Japanese people like to go to, like, the West, where it might not be as good service, but they can leave work at a reasonable hour, and they can,
Uh,
be a bit
well, it's like
lax.
that
So
film. What's that film? Is it American Made or there was that Netflix film that I think it won the Oscar.
okay,
But it was comparing the working environments between. Pretty sure it's a Japanese company and an American company. The Japanese company wanted to buy the American company, and at first you were seeing like the Americans with their unions and seeing them a bit lazy. And you're like, why don't you work like the Japanese? And then you meet the Japanese guy, and you see his belly seeing his daughter, and he's just working every hour. And you're like, oh god, that sucks as well.
yeah, I remember when I worked for a Japanese company. A lot of foreigners do. They go over there and work as an English teacher. So I was in this Japanese company, but we'd have like Australians, Americans, English, Canadians. And I remember the manager came in and said, "We've all got to work like overtime on the weekend." It's interesting seeing different countries' reaction to it. Like the
Mm.
Japanese staff are like, "I understand. I will try my best." The English people were like, "Bollocks! Well, I got to do it." Americans were like, "Get out of here! It's not in my contract. I'm not doing it," kind of thing. And the
Yeah,
Australians were like, weren't even there. They were late. So kind of like an interesting stereotype. Uh, but yeah, like, did you notice any, like, so you were there in Japan, I believe, to interview Mark Karpellis. Is that correct? Or
yes,
it's
yeah,
like
that's correct.
a Kraken sponsored thing. Um,
Mm.
yeah. So I don't know. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, just for people who don't know? We're actually the MintGox
Well, yeah,
podcast, which is a little bit of a pun on the Mount Gox, which was a famous exchange in Japan, which kind of famously had Bitcoin lost or stolen or hacked, and Mark was the CEO, and yeah, he was an interesting character. But how was it interviewing him?
that's fine. I know he's not very popular. I kind of liked him. I'd been trying to get the interview with him for a long time, and he kind of replied to a Reddit post, and then I couldn't get him to like reply, and then I did the interview with Jed, and I let him know, and he was like, "Yep, I'll do an interview." So, um,
That's Jed McCaleb.
I, yeah, Jed McCaleb. I liked Mark. I did. I felt sorry for him
Yeah.
in some ways. I feel like he got. I think a lot of people look at Mount Gox, uh, but they look at it with the lens of where we are today.
Mm,
Whereas, yeah, I think there's very little excuse for an exchange to get hacked these days. There's
sure.
been enough experience from other exchanges. There's enough information now out there about the vectors of attacks.
Yeah.
Where to keep things in hot wallets and cold wallets, and the various security procedures you have in place. And Goss was pretty much the first exchange. I know there was like one before or whatever, but pretty much. And I think he got handed a dud that was full of holes and errors. I think he was out of his depth, and it just ran away from him. And I felt like he took a lot of pressure from that. And I think yeah, if you do a proper audit of what happened, it wasn't like he was just some greedy, selfish guy who just was trying to rinse people for their money. He got sold a dud. He got offloaded a dud, and he was out of his depth. And I don't think he realized what Bitcoin was going to be or what it stood for at that time.
No, I think when he started, it wasn't worth that much, right? And they had, I think,
No.
with McGox, it was the run up to like $1,300, I think, and that's when it all kind of, everything happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I think he's just, probably, obviously, he made maybe some questionable choices as a CEO that maybe, he could have maybe deferred some responsibility to other things, but I think it could have happened to anybody.
But he's not CEO caliber. Like when you meet him, he's not a
No,
CEO.
no.
He is. He's a tech guy a little bit, but he's not a CEO. He doesn't have that character. I don't think that's insulting him. I don't like. I think if I said that to him, I don't think he'd be insulted by that.
Yeah, but I guess like so you would probably know if you're not the CEO, it's probably best. And they weren't short of money, which would have been best to bring somebody in. But I always remember an interesting story I heard about him. Did you ever meet Kim Nikuhodai from WizTech when you were?
Yeah. No, we
Yeah,
didn't meet him, but we talk a lot.
yeah. So he was telling me an interesting story, which was that when he was investigating, he kind of looked at some of like the source code of Mount Gox, and he found a bug. And this was after it all happened. Mount Gox was done. He said, "I found this bug," and he sent it to Mark. Could this be a reason why why it was kind of hacked? And he said, "Oh, it could be." And he actually made a pull request and fixed it, even though like Mount Gox was closed. He actually fixed the bug in the code and like commit, which is like I think there's kind of like a programming like spectrum autism kind of thing
Yeah,
on
I
there,
think
right?
so too.
So it's like obviously not a CEO, maybe a programmer. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but the first time you were there, you said you went to interview Roger Ver. Was that correct?
Yeah, that was correct. Yeah. Yeah. Roger said he'll do the interview, and I was like, well, I want to do this in person. I was still like a naive new Bitcoiner. I've only been into Bitcoin for about a year, and I still didn't understand. Uh, I didn't fully understand or comprehend why small blocks are more important than big blocks. I kind of saw both sides of the narrative. I was like, well, yeah,
Hmm.
if you get more information as the blocks, then it makes sense because you can have cheaper and faster transactions. But yeah, okay, no, I understand. It's like smaller block speeds, it's more decentralized. But and I was just kind of like, I eventually sided with the small block guys, but I was kind of like, I guess I was slightly sympathetic at that time to the bigger block thesis because it just sometimes it takes some time. Maybe it's just me, but I think it takes time to get your head around the complexities around these decisions. Like if you've been in Bitcoin for 4 years and the scaling war happens, you get it. You've lived through it. But if you're new, it's just you're getting so many different narratives and arguments thrown at you. It's hard to understand it. So when Roger said he'll do the interview, I was like, look, I think I want to do it in person. I'll come out to Tokyo and do it. And he said, yeah, fine. So I did. Both trips I've been out. I went out for 2 days. It's a long way to go for two
Yeah,
days.
for sure. I remember. I think this is when I first got into your podcast. So I was like, in the midst of like the scaling debate, also kind of trying to make up my mind. I used to be a big blocker as well, and I remember your podcast coming out. And I remember what I found appealing was you were kind of new. You didn't have any like tribal connections, right? You're kind of fresh, and you
Mm.
also you seem to me have that kind of, I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm stereotyping here, but kind of like British skepticism. So I was very
Mm.
interested to see because I was kind of in it, and I had like friends. And it was very difficult to be completely like non-biased, right? Once you've been in it so long. So I was interested, okay, this guy,
Yeah.
he's from England as well. He's kind of new to it. Does he see something I doesn't? And I really kind of enjoyed how you kind of approach both sides, non-tribal. It's like watching a drama. Which way is Peter gonna like drop and kind of end on it? So
Which
um,
way will it go?
yeah.
Yeah, I kind of miss that time. Like I'm a bit more tribal now
I've
because I
noticed a
just,
little bit.
I think, yeah. Well, I think what happens after time, like once you made your mind up because you figured out, you go, okay. It's not that. It's not that I would say anyone is right.
Mm,
What I would say is there's just consensus, right? And the consensus, social consensus, well, the various forms of consensus led to people, ultimately choosing small blocks, um, and that's fine. But that's not to say they were right. That's just
Mm.
what won. It's still an opinion. It's still a trade-off. There are still trade-offs, and some people view the trade-offs differently and think, okay, it's okay to sacrifice a bit of decentralization for bigger blocks. Again, there's no right or wrong. There is just an opinion, and there is. It's in some ways it's kind of like democracy, isn't it? In some ways,
Yeah,
you know,
everybody
it's
gets what nobody wants, I think the term is.
yeah. So it was kind of like democracy, and it became a vote, and small blocks won, and I've become tribal because I'm now just fed up of the arguments. Like
Mm.
I don't need to be impartial anymore because I don't need to figure it out. For me,
Mm.
this is the right decision.
Yeah, yeah. It's like somebody trying to continue to argue like who won you know the war 100 years ago. It's over. People have moved on. Kind of thing, I think. But yeah, yeah. But like I'm still quite interested because I always thought that it would be very, very hard for a non-technical person to really get the small block argument. I think that was kind of the feeling that the big block argument was always quite obvious and easy to explain to people who aren't programmers. So I don't know, like I'm just kind of interested as like I'm not saying you're non-technical, obviously you kind of, you're
But I
fairly
am because I admit that.
but like what was it would you say that kind of won you over per se, or for me it was actually I used to be a big blocker, and then it was actually speaking to Roger that changed my mind at the meeting.
Wow.
Ironically.
Ironically, yeah.
Ironically.
I guess for me, I mean, it's hard to really remember. Yeah, back to why I sided with what I sided with. Part of my decision was following certain people. I was just looking which people supported small blocks, which people supported
Mm,
big blocks. I was like,
yeah.
Jameson Lopp, Adam Back. Do you know what I mean? I'm like
Yeah,
ticking
I
these
like
people
these
off.
people. I respect their opinions.
I'm
So
like,
if they're saying something must be right, kind of.
they seem kind of like they're kind of on the kind of nerdy techie side and less about the corporate. Um, and then another thing that really stuck out for me is when the New York agreement happened and none of the developers turned up. I was like,
Mm,
why aren't the developers going to this? They must know something. Yeah. So there was a bit of like signal for me in those the decisions these people were making. But over time, it just became obvious to me that you want maximum decentralization. Yeah, you want maximum decentralization. You want small blocks. You want to get this as decentralized as possible, and that I understand now, and now I get that. It's not to say I don't. Can anyone honestly say they don't see there won't be a block size increase in the future? It's unlikely, certainly in the short term, but there could come a time. But I think if
yeah, I
it
think
does
core
happen, it'll come
developers
at the
have proposed it. So there's been
yeah,
proposals. Yeah.
and I think when it does come, it'll come at a time when it's absolutely necessary for network, not absolutely necessary for companies.
Yeah. Yeah, I just personally, I was actually a developer and I had a popular game like back in 2013, 14. I was a big blocker because like my game was like being destroyed by these fees and everything. And then I
Wow.
realized, wait, if my game, just one game that isn't even that popular compared to real games, if that can't scale on this, how is it ever going to handle real games, So that was kind of what
Mm.
turned it to me, Yeah, yeah. So just kind of like shifting gear a bit. I think a lot of our viewers, we have a few people who aren't really Bitcoiners. They've kind of come from the gaming side, and it just occurred to me they might not
Nice.
know your backstory. So like, how did you actually get into Bitcoin? So yeah, I guess I've known you've been in space for what, about 3 years? I think your podcast started, but like, what's your origin story? Would you say?
Well, it's a weird one. I first got into Bitcoin in 2013 when I was using the Silk Road, but I wasn't really into Bitcoin. I was into the Silk Road, and
Okay, it's interesting.
yeah, my only real exposure to Bitcoin was going on local Bitcoins to get some, sending it to the Silk Road, which you were never really scared about because the Bitcoins were worth like $80 at the time or whatever. I can't remember
Yeah.
what it was, maybe 100. And then I'd be buying stuff on the Silk Road. For people like who are maybe your viewers don't know, but the Silk Road was basically Amazon for everything, but
Yeah.
mainly people used it to buy weed and stuff.
Stuff that you can't buy off
Um,
Amazon, let's just say.
yeah, stuff. Yeah, but you definitely want to see the reviews. And then I was trading a bit of Bitcoin on like these CFDs, making and losing money, and then the run up to 1200 happened and then crashed. I was like, oh, whatever, that's done. See you later. Forgot
Which is
about
like
it. Just totally ignored it.
2014, 13, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just kind of ignored it, and then occasionally you see it in the news, and occasionally you check the price. It's like, oh no, now it's down to like 600, or now it's down to 500, and you're like, oh, this thing's dead. And then I remember it like it would hit whatever bottom was, like 200, and they just started to rise and rise, kept rising, and then got back up to like 400, 500, 600, blah blah blah, and then yeah, they just became a reason at the end of 2016. I needed some Bitcoin and went on Coinbase. Like I did a Google search of buying Bitcoin and found Coinbase, which I didn't know of, and they had this other thing called Ethereum on there, and I was like, okay, what's this all about? And this time I like read about Bitcoin, learned a bit, not a lot, and I mainly started trading. That's just I'm gonna go and trade some coins and made some money, etc. And it was only really when I started the podcast, because that was 4 years ago. The podcast where I started in November, that I really spent more time trying to understand Bitcoin, but I found it very challenging the whole way.
So what made you start the podcast? I guess lots of people get into Bitcoin, but why? Like, did you have like a background in podcasting, or is it something you always wanted to do, or is it just?
No. I was out of work at the time. My old advertising agency had gone kaput, as they say in Germany, and so I was in between jobs. And I did that trading bit, and then what happened was I ended up just weird chain of events. I ended up at like a yoga retreat in Italy that was run by this guy called Rich Roll, who's a vegan ultra athlete
Rick Roll
podcaster. Rich
Rich
Roll.
Roll. Okay, okay.
Yeah, I'd been listening to his podcast, and then I went to his event and hung out with him. He was like, "If you're ever in LA, let me know." And so I went out to LA. I was like, "Hi, I'm here." Started hanging out with him. I was like, "I think I want your life. I want to do what you do. Like, how do I do it?" And he just told me, "It's like, this is the equipment you need. Watch the Pat Flynn course, and then give me a call." And I did. And 3 days later, I recorded my first show, and here we are. 3 years and what's that? November, December, January, nearly 3.5 years later. 320 odd shows, 2 podcasts, and a news desk.
Crazy.
Fucking mad, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess like this. I guess Bitcoin has asked themselves this question: like, what else would you be doing if you never got into Bitcoin? You kind of speak to yourself years ago, saying you'd be doing Bitcoin full time. It'd be quite surprising.
Yeah, I don't know. I dread to think. I feel so fortunate and lucky to be able to do. It's like the best job I could possibly have. My job is to have conversations like this with you, and phone up people and make new friends and learn things and go to conferences. When I used to travel, it's just really cool. You just get everywhere I go, I get treated really well. People want to, like in Tokyo, people want to come out and hang out, have a drink. I feel so fortunate. Honestly, don't know what I would be doing, but the thought of doing something else is a bit of a nightmare. I love doing this.
Yeah, it's kind of like I had a moment once when I'd just go to a country and you'd automatically kind of be on Bitcoin Twitter, hey, who's here? And you automatically would have like a group of friends to go out drinking with, right? It's quite cool, Like
Yeah,
when you came to Tokyo.
yeah, we've been a lot.
Yeah. Did you miss that at the moment during, I guess, the pandemic or?
So much, dude. So much. Honestly, I missed the travel. I was traveling too much. Like that year, 2019, I did like 92 flights. Been everywhere, like 20 countries, and I was so tired by the end of it. I put a lot of weight on, so I needed the break. And I won't ever go back to doing what I was doing before. But I miss the travel. I really do. I miss going out to America.
Mm.
Going from city to city, and I miss the airports. I miss it all.
Yeah. Did I remember hear you saying you were thinking of moving to America, or you were?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
okay.
was. I looked into it, but it's complexities with children. I can get a
Uh,
visa. It's so funny. Katie the Russian. You know Katie the Russian.
no,
She's really cool. She was like, "Oh, I'll help you with a visa."
it's a Bitcoin
Um,
Twitter personality. I'm assuming maybe.
yeah. But she's got this really cool company called Plan B Passports, where she helps people get second passports. But she's like, "I help you out." She introduced me to the guy. Basically, it turns out because of the podcast, that would be very helpful for me to get a visa.
Mm.
So I've considered it. I'd like to. I mean, I'd like to go and live in Austin, but it's making it happen. But I would like to at some point. I think what's going to more likely happen in the short term is I'm just going to go out there and spend time. I'm going to split my time there.
Yeah. yeah.
Which we learn here.
I guess try and do more interviews that justify going over to the States, you know.
Exactly, dude. Exactly. Just give myself a reason.
I have the same thing with Japan. I'm trying to get like people like to, you know, organize conferences in Japan so I can, you know, expense a ticket over there or something like that.
Yeah, when did you come back? When did you leave?
I, sorry, you broke up a little bit there, but I think you said
What?
what?
Yeah, why did you leave?
Oh, like lots of like some family issues, but yeah, if you know, yeah, but like Japan's a great place. I think a lot. I was kind of getting to that age where I wanted to settle down. I didn't have a permanent
Right.
residence in Japan at the time. I wasn't really working. I was like Bitcoin nomad, and that's quite difficult in Japan to kind of, you know, get anything, you know, any sort of contract if you don't have any like tax records and, you know. So I thought my plan was, you know, I'll kind of just settle back in England, get a nice house in the countryside, and then I'll just like go to Japan, you know, travel frequently, you know. And my work was planned that I'll be traveling around to lots of different conferences, and I have family, so it's easier to look after, you know, other family in the UK, so I could travel around a bit. But then obviously pandemic happened, and I got locked down. But it's not too bad. Actually, I managed to escape to a nice kind of countryside house with a garden, and you know,
Nice. Well,
yeah,
it's a nice British Airways flight to Tokyo because they've got the
yeah,
brand new 787. It's a like beautiful plane. I've
really. Oh,
I think I've flown both times on the way out there. Yeah, it's a beautiful plane.
well, yeah. Well, I've got like enough air miles accumulated to kind of get an extra flight there just as soon as I'm
Nice.
allowed. As soon as, I don't think they'll let me in at the moment, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, yeah, it is a great place, and it's very Bitcoin friendly. Maybe you notice that as well. Kind of Bitcoin signs everywhere, and it was quite ahead of
Hmm.
the time. Um, yeah, so I think good things are going to happen in Japan. Like, you know, like Kraken are reopening up there. I believe they've started up there again. So a lot of conferences. So perhaps we'll bump into each other in the future. You know, there. Um, yeah. So I just wanted to talk about the podcast a little bit.
Hmm.
So you said you've done like how many shows have you done?
I think it's 315, 316, getting close to 320 on the Bitcoin show, and then we've done nearly 80 on Defiance.
Okay, so Defiance is your non-Bitcoin podcast, is that right?
Yes. Yeah, we cover Bitcoin on it sometimes. Like we've
Okay,
done like 4 Bitcoin shows on that.
but I suppose it lets you kind of talk about other things. You know, you can kind of be a bit
Yeah.
more
The other things
adventurous.
that's yeah, the other things that scratch your yeah, itch. What is it? What do they call it?
Scratch your itch.
I don't know, that's probably I get this time and I'm like, oh, yeah, just other like things I'm interested in. Like, just want to try out or talk to people about. It was the Lynn Albrecht interview I did all those 4 years ago. I was like, that that's the kind of interview I also want to do.
Yeah, yeah. I get. Isn't there? I think I saw there's like a Silk Road movie that's come out or something. Or
Yeah, I'm halfway through it. It's a bit crap.
is
It's
it?
okay. I was I was
Where are you
texting
watching?
Lynn
I
about
couldn't
it
find.
earlier. Somebody sent me a copy.
Oh,
I
okay.
was texting Lynn about it earlier because like I was like, "What do you think of the lady who plays you and stuff?" And I just think anything that isn't factually true is annoying.
Mm,
Yeah, and I was annoyed by it. But I wonder how many things that are factually true that I've watched before and not cared about. I think when a story is important to you, because like I've covered this for the length of doing the podcast, and I've written to Ross, and Ross has written to me a couple of times, and yeah, it's like a personal story. And
yeah.
so when somebody gets like that stupid novel that Nick Bilton wrote about it, or if people get the facts wrong, it's just a bit kind of frustrating.
I think if you're close to something or you know something, I guess it's just like seeing Bitcoin like on a BBC News thing. If you know about it, it's just surprising like how
Yeah.
much they get wrong. So it makes you think
Yep.
every documentary on every other subject is probably bollocks. So
Yeah. It is. It's like this is what it's like. So yeah, I still want to cover the story. I'd like to interview Ross one day.
yeah, so kind of I guess you're a podcaster, but it does feel like you're expanding a little bit to kind of more stories. Do you have a plan to kind of make more features? I think maybe you did a little bit on maybe am I right? You did something on like what's the word looking for? Like immigration or um
Yeah, I did. You were talking about the movies I made, the films.
yeah, yeah. Like do you have a plan to make like
Yeah,
short movies and
I
documentaries? So
have. Yeah, that's my ultimate goal. Is I want to be a filmmaker.
Okay.
one day one day I maybe won't make podcasts anymore and I'll make films. But I'd like to be a filmmaker. I made those like 3 films in Colombia, Venezuela, and Greece. No, Turkey. Is it Turkey? Yeah, it's Turkey. They're not great. I think we did all right for for a first one. But they're not great. But you learn. Like it's like my first podcast went great. Other people liked them, said they're good, but I just think I learned a lot about doing them. But I need to do more of them. But the pandemic hit. I was going out to Africa to make a film, but the pandemic hit. So now it's just like can't really do anything about it.
Mm. Yeah, it's kind of like people try to do these kind of like things in the bedrooms or try to do it with Zoom, but it doesn't really have the same feel, right?
No,
But
it's not. You need to be there in person.
would you like to do, say, like a short story on the, you know, the Silk Road or the Ross story? Any plans for that, or any other things you'd
I
like
wouldn't.
to?
I'd like to do it, but I wouldn't do it. I'd only do it if I could have Ross as part of the story.
Is that not possible? I guess like you can't have visitors or anything, or
I mean, there's some complexities around it that you can get around at some point, but the timing isn't right. But he
yeah,
knows I want to do it, and we've spoken about it. And I'd like to tell that story in a different way.
yeah, yeah. It's like just going back to the podcast, like probably it's a bit of a cliche question, and probably have a few. But is there any like, I guess, what would you say is your favorite guest you've had on, or any?
Well, for a long time, people asked me what was my favorite interview. It was the one we re-released today. I keep talking about it, but the one with Lynn. I mean, the first one I did with her, it was my 10th ever interview, and at the end of it, I was like, wow, I really want. Like, it was a hobby back then, but I was like, wow, I want this to be my job, my career. Like, I've enjoyed doing the research. I've enjoyed trying to like give her a comfortable environment to be interviewed, and I've enjoyed the interview. I really liked it. It was the first one I videoed. Yeah, so I loved that. What else? It's so hard because there's been so many. I did one today with Dominic Frisby, which was brilliant. He was
Yeah,
amazing.
we're trying to get him on the
Uh,
podcast as well.
yeah, well, yeah, I'm sure you'll get him. I like every time I talk to Preston Pish. I think he's so smart. Um, sorry, it's
I
really
just
hard one to pick because there's so many I like. I've got so much out, so many of them. I think you sometimes end up just liking the person.
mm,
So, like I said, Nick Carter, I've done so many
yeah.
interviews with him because I just like him. Same with Jameson Lott, but just
It's not
like
really an
him.
interview. It's just like a chat with a good friend.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. I think the ones where I'm talking the least about Bitcoin or asking them the least about Bitcoin, the ones I enjoyed the most, strangely enough, like Lynn Albrecht one, we didn't talk about Bitcoin. The one I did with Mark Weinstein about the Fire Festival, I loved that. We went for nearly 3 hours. So yeah, it's just strange that when we're not really talking about Bitcoin, that's when I really feel a lot more comfortable.
Mm. Well, I guess like Bitcoin is
Like,
quite a heavy and deep subject, so I kind of like that, the Joe Rogan style format where you chat about like a specific topic, but then you just go off on a tangent, and it's more you just like two people hanging out, and then you might go back to it, kind of thing. I think they always make
yeah,
the nicer podcast, right? Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I do. I like that. Very early on, funny enough, when I did the Roger interview, I spent a lot of time. I spent basically the first day, 24 hours in the hotel preparing, and a lot of that was actually not. Some people think you is a podcast. Maybe this is for some people. You just turn up, press the button, record, and leave. Like I spent a lot of time trying to look at what really good interviewers do, how they craft an interview, how they take the listener on a journey, how they kind of support the guest if the guest is struggling, but also slow the guest down if they need some more information or they want to interject. And I spent a lot of time doing that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think, for what it's worth, I think your podcasts are quite well done and quite professional. Except for
Thank you.
the one where you got stoned. But
That was brilliant.
but so did Elon Musk, right? So maybe that's
Yeah, that one was brilliant. I was so fucked. I was smashed. We blame Jack Maller's stepmom Brooke for that.
yeah. It was all legal over there, I'm sure. Good.
Yeah, it was in Colorado.
Yeah, when in Colorado. It's like, is there anybody like you'd love to get on the show, or anybody you haven't interviewed, or somebody you can't quite get? I know as a podcaster, it's quite hard to get people on.
It is. It is. It gets easier over time. Yeah, I mean, like, right now, I'd really like to interview Lex Fridman. Yeah, I think his
Okay,
podcast is
interesting.
great,
Yeah.
and I think he's shown an interest in Bitcoin.
Yeah,
I'd like to do that.
I remember I watched the thing he
Him,
did with George Hotz. I'm not sure if you saw that one. And there's maybe we'll get onto this, but there's a lot of this thing where a lot of I think academics they like Bitcoin, but they get super enthralled by Ethereum. And I don't know. I find it's quite interesting where I remember that Greg George Hotz, who was a famous kind of hacker who kind of jailbroke the iPhone, he was very dismissive of the small block kind of story. So it's just crazy, like So it's kind of interesting to see that because Lex is a smart guy. So another like a kind of expert opinion that would be interesting to see what they think about certain things in Bitcoin that we might be biased by due to like being tribal,
it,
whatever.
it depends what the issue is. So, because some of the issues you tend to find these people, it's like they feel like because they have a platform or some experience, they have to have an opinion
Mm.
on it, and then sometimes that opinion is not based on understanding Bitcoin or doing the deep research. So it can come across as a little bit kind of like, yeah, I'm new to Bitcoin. I'm here to fix it, kind of situation. But I would like to. I think Lex is kind of very mild mannered. I think
Yeah,
he
yeah, he
is.
seems like a very cool guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
very
good. So
humble.
I'd like to do that, but I'd also like to do the Eric Weinstein interview because he's shown
This is
interest. I
with
think there'll be a
my
whole different.
my brother messaged me yesterday. Said literally, "What do you think about Eric Weinstein and Lex Friedman?" So maybe these kind of trending or something. But yeah, so yeah,
Well, they kind of are because there was that whole clubhouse room the other day where
okay,
everyone was talking to them and they were getting involved in the conversation and they're showing an interest.
yeah, yeah, and it's I guess like there's a few people who are kind of in the blockchain space, but they haven't actually seemed to talk to I guess what we would say is like kind of OG Bitcoiners, right? It's like this kind of,
Yep.
and it's a bit frustrating. So I kind of another one who I think kind of broke in is Niall Ferguson. I think Stefan interviewed him. So I was
Yeah.
waiting for him to kind of, because he's been on podcasts and like blockchain podcasts and talked about it, but I kind of was willing to, somebody who's like, from the OG school to kind of talk to, because I think they're not the same circles, right? A lot of these people are kind of in the like, well, Niall particularly is like in the Davos academic kind of circle, and he probably goes to the meetings with the rich VCs who are all in on blockchain kind of thing. So, but actually, to be fair, he's friends with Wences from Zappo. I understand who's pretty hardcore. But yeah, I hope you can probably get Eric on. Like, have you reached out to Eric and Lex, or is it still a thing, work in progress?
Dude, of course I have, man.
Yeah,
Of course I have. I've tried everything with Eric. Yeah, and I've reached out to Lex. We'll see, man.
yeah. It just takes
I'm
patience, like
patient.
to. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I get them in the end.
yeah, yeah. No, look forward to that. Yeah, I think sometimes there's a hierarchy. You have to get like one interviewee, and then they're kind of friends with another one, and you kind of work your way up the chain. Yeah.
Dude, you're so right. You're so right. You got to keep nibbling away at that chain. And do you know? I remember those early days where you send out 20
Yeah,
emails and you might get one reply if you're lucky, and it's so demoralizing because you're like, I'm trying my best here.
yeah, yeah. In a way, it's again, it's a little bit of nepotism I get, right? Like I'm, like this podcast is quite new, but I kind of been in there for a while, so I have like a direct DM to certain people who know other people. So it's great to have you know, get people on board. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, excited.
God, this is really caught up with me.
Sorry.
Whew, it's a bit late. I didn't realize it was so late. These things catch up with me when I get late.
Oh, I wanted just to say
I
to the
started 6
audience, it's like 9:40 here at night in the UK. So I've actually been drinking coffee because I made the mistake of
Oh,
exercising today, and I'm tired.
what time did you exercise?
Oh, I did a bit in the morning, and but I did some yesterday as well, and then it's just it's I'm not
Yeah,
20 anymore.
I've been getting up at 6 in the morning to go for like an hour and a half, 2 hour walk every
Wow,
day. And I
wow,
get to this time of the day and I'm like, oh, absolutely beat. It kills me.
yeah, yeah, it's all good.
Getting
So
old. I'm getting old as well. You're a baby compared to me. I am actually old now. I'm old. I'm at that stage where like angry little shits on the street call me granddad or say fuck off old man.
Really?
Finally reached that point. It's so depressing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's Bedford for you, I guess. Well, let's just kind of switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about gaming because it's a gaming podcast, and we actually had
Yep.
a question from the audience that come in that I'll probably just bring in now. Um, so this is which game from your childhood has your most fond memories, and do you still play with your kids? So just for reference, Peter and I spoke before, and he's kind of like a kind of old school gamer, given his age, being an old man, and he's going to enlighten us on games of the past. So.
Most fond memory. I mean, there's a lot.
So you were quite a gamer when you were younger, then? Is that fair to say? Or well, I get
Yeah, I
yeah.
was. I was.
Awesome.
They look on the BBC. Like the first ever game I played. I remember my dad bringing home this BBC computer and
BBC Micro.
plug it in. Yeah, and I couldn't put it down. I was like on it all the time. We had this game called Manic Miner, which I love.
Oh
I still
yeah.
I still go back and play the emulators. I play these old games sometimes.
So
But
Miner is I think that was one of the start of the Lucas games. I think that came in.
yeah, Jet Set Willy came afterwards.
It's kind of the start of the point and click adventure games. Is that right? I get it wrong.
No, no, you're confusing it with something else. But ironically, the funny you'll crack up. My fondest memory of a game from my childhood from my BBC was called Citadel.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of this one.
Yeah,
So
and that's funny because all the Bitcoiners going on
yeah,
about Citadel because it was this big adventure, like all these screens. You had to go off, you had to get a key here and go to this place, and loved that game. But
somebody's actually making
probably,
that again. Actually, somebody's making a Bitcoin Citadel game. I saw on Twitter. So kind of
I
like a
wonder if it's anything to do with that game. But
could
but
be.
but
It's
the
like an old
the
school style.
the real game that stood out in my childhood, the absolute banger, where I was like, this changes everything, was Elite.
Okay, well, tell
Because
us
it
about
was
Elite. I think most people
so
might not know.
Elite was like it's like a space game. You're in a spaceship. You used to go
Mm.
from planets to planets and trade goods, and sometimes you do narcotics to get more money. But if you did that, then the space pirates police would come after you, and then you get into dogfights. And but it was 3D, like actual 3D, done on a BBC Micro, and it was phenomenal. Anyone from that era, you say Elite, they'll be like, yeah, I remember that shit.
Well, I'm going to actually just
But then
do. I'm going to do a little bit of a screen share here, so we can probably take a look at it. So Elite, is this the one? Elite game.
go into the image. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
To see that,
Proper
you'd have to try
3D.
and get in. Yeah, so you see, there's like that's the base or the planets you have to get
Mm.
to, and it would spin, and you'd have to try and time it right to get into the little gap. It was bloody frustrating. Um, but yeah, that was a
But
very very cool game.
BBC Micro, yeah. So, but it was a proper game with like it was quite deep, you say, with kind of incentives and
Yeah, it was it was a lot for a BBC. And then after the BBC, I didn't
so
play
make
a lot of
3D.
Nintendo. I mean, there was a football game called Pro Evolution Soccer,
Mm-hmm.
PES, which I played a lot, and I entered a national tournament in Birmingham. Me and my brother went, and I
Oh
lost
wow,
in the final. 800 people, and I lost in the final.
wow. This
3-1,
is
no, 2-1. Yeah, so I went through every group game, all the knockouts, and I lost in the final to this guy, and I got what did I get? I got like 300 quid. He got 800 quid and a week's holiday in Corsica in the world finals. Like, what? So I missed out on that. It was a bit disappointing, man.
well, like I guess it. So that's kind of like an old school esports tournament. So if you're probably playing now, you may have got something like 100 grand or something like that.
Dude, honestly, I've seen that stuff. I was like, shit, man, I would have made a lot of money now.
Yeah. Well, we actually at the MintGox events we give out like I think every month we give out like 10,000 sats. But when we first started, given the Bitcoin price, if some people held, they got like a few $100. But given the price
Wow.
right, and yeah, so it's kind of yeah, we kind of hope that in a few years from now, it's going to be like the first Bitcoin millionaire from an esports event. So
And there's been other good games. Like there's other games, and a lot of people talk about like GoldenEye. Like I think everybody agrees that GoldenEye, especially GoldenEye multiplayer, was something truly special.
yeah, it was one of those
Like
kind of pivotal
they
games.
they just crushed that experience. The first Mario Kart was pretty incredible. Grand Theft Auto obviously blew my mind, but I don't really play games now anymore. My kids do, but I
Hmm.
don't. I don't even have time for them on my phone. Apart from what was that one I like, Mr. Jump.
That's like a playing on the toilet basically kind of game. Or
Platform game, and it's so frustrating.
yeah,
But I don't have the time. I remember what happened was that Grand Theft Auto 5 came out. I was so excited. I got it. I started playing it. I was like, oh, do you know what? I think I've outgrown this now. It's
it's
not for me. Like, I didn't have the time for it anymore.
it's a strange thing,
Uh,
right? Like I kind of think if you had the time, would you still be playing it, or is it like a
no, something. I lost something between Grand Theft Auto 4 and 5. I was excited to get 5, and then I was just like,
I
I
think
think
games
I'm over
became
this.
too big for me. Like, kind of, I remember playing like Vice City or Grand Theft Auto. They were small games and they were limited. They kind of had like, I
Yeah.
remember on Vice City, you had like a plane called the Dodo, and you could only fly a certain distance. And this limitation is what made it fun. Now games are just like you could do anything. It's just like I don't know where to start. I'm not gonna, you know.
Vice City was pretty cool though. San Andreas was really cool.
Then it
But
got
they
too big,
just,
I
yeah,
think.
yeah, maybe. I don't know.
But
I just think I got to that stage where because of my kids, and like I didn't have
yeah,
the time, and I just felt like I perhaps outgrew
well,
it, like in some ways. But I do love gaming. Like I like playing. Like I would like nothing more than to have a week of work and sit there. Like I
mm.
really want to get a PS5 and just sit there for a week and be left alone and play.
Yeah, I think that's I think there's a dynamic there that playing games can feel like wasting time. But I kind of think a little bit, maybe you're a little bit too old for this, maybe I'm still in that zone, but there's like a social aspect where in a way games like you have like social duties, but sometimes playing a game kind of ticks that box of socializing. So for example, my wife's Japanese and she's like a gamer. So our kind of couple time is actually playing games. She forces me to play games, you know.
Nice,
So I kind of think,
nice.
in a way, a lot of young people with friends, and maybe young people don't drink as much nowadays. So maybe that becomes like the social thing to do is play a game together. So it's no longer wasting time per se. That's how I kind of see it.
How would
Perhaps.
you have answered that question? Like, what was your favorite game as a kid or wherever? What's the standout one for you?
My first game I remember really liking, is my dad again. He wasn't really a computer person, but he always liked to buy the best tech because it's just he was like working and he wanted like computers were cool. Like you've got the new computer, right? So I remember he used to buy Monkey Island. If you know that game, Lucas,
Hmm.
which was like it's an old LucasArts point and click adventure, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'll probably have to share. Let me share the screen. But that's definitely the standout game for me because I remember playing it as a kid and not being able to solve it um, because it was quite difficult. Oh, I can see all the remasters here. Actually, Pirates of the Caribbean is kind of heavily based on this game, but this game is also based on Pirates of the Caribbean. The guy who made this game, he went to Disneyland and went on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride and kind of got an idea for a game. And then he added stuff to it. And then the Pirates of the Caribbean movie copied the stuff he added to it. So it's like they both copied each other.
Right.
It's kind of a popular game, but I remember it was very hard to solve. It's like MacGyver, if you know that in a game,
Yeah,
right?
I remember this game.
Yeah, it's like you're stuck in prison
Yeah.
and you have like, you got like a stick of chewing gum and some alcohol and a rubber chicken. How do you escape? Kind of out of the box thinking. And
Well, we used to have games like this on the BBC, and it was like that, but with no pictures. It was all text.
yeah, so this was one of it. So this kind of, that's why I was saying with Manic Miner, I can't remember the exact lineage, but there was a lineage from these kind of games that became point and click games, and then they kind of got remastered. And this kind of came out when graphics got a little bit better, so they added color. But I guess the original games kind of started as like stories, right? Point and click and kind of interactive novels. But this game is interesting because I couldn't solve it when I was like maybe 8 or something, and I just like put it away. And when I was 14, I wasn't doing very well in school, and I came back to the
Uh-huh.
game and managed to solve it. And ever since I solved it, my
Wow.
my grades in school just went up because I felt some sort of weird achievement that I'm not stupid. Um, yeah, but yeah, so I guess that was it. My oldest game, but I've played a bunch of other games since then. Um, yeah, no, it's Yeah, it's quite interesting to see. Like, have you ever? I guess Bitcoin. I guess Bitcoin for most people, and I think it's probably fair. It's some sort of like store of value or digital gold. Have you ever kind of thought about Bitcoin in gaming? Or I know you've played poker for Bitcoin, or is it not something that um not something that kind of makes sense
I
to you?
mean,
Or
like, no, I mean it does. If you need an in-game currency, of course it makes sense. I don't play games. It makes
yeah,
sense to but poker because I don't mind gambling because I kind of know what I'm doing and I'd fancy my chances. But I don't see why not. You know, it kind of makes sense, right? Like, why have some in-game token when you can do it with sats?
well, I guess it's like games like a digital world, and and they're becoming more complicated and open. So it kind of makes sense to have like
Mm,
a digital currency there. But I am somewhat biased being on the MintGox Bitcoin gaming
of
podcast.
course you are,
So
man.
I,
Of course
I,
you
I
are.
need to plug it. This Sunday we have the event where you can join and play CS:GO for Bitcoin and all these games.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, talking about games, this is actually why we got you on the podcast. You're actually
You're about to
challenged.
embarrass me now, aren't you?
Yeah. So you were challenged by Stefan. So kind of like I guess he's the one you have to beat, which I don't think he'll do, to be honest, because he was second, I think. But just to give a
I've
bit,
tried to
go
play
on.
it and I'm crap.
Yeah, yeah, it's okay. I think Peter's laptop isn't too great, so that's gonna the handicap we give him, so it kind of lags a little bit. But yeah, well, let me just share my screen and we can actually just have a look at the leaderboard. This one. So this is the current scores. So number one is Nicola Dore, but he is like a massive gamer, and he was like practicing like crazy.
I don't know how we did it because I did a bunch of practice laps and I'm terrible.
I think a lot of people have a
Who
gaming
else is
pad.
on there?
Stefan's too. Stefan actually
What's a
beat
gaming pad?
like a controller, Xbox controller. You don't have to use a keyboard. You can
Oh
plug.
shit! Oh, that changes everything, right?
It makes it easier, but it's still possible to get decent scores, without it. But yeah, it does help.
Oh man, I didn't know they had gaming pads.
If you've got one handy, you can plug it in and give it a go. But
I don't. I don't.
yeah.
I'll just have to go with my arrows.
Well, let's look at the bottom. So we got no coiner netted, so you have to beat. So this is I got my no coiner friend to do a lap just
I
to
gotta
set the
beat
standard.
Brad. I
Brad,
gotta
yeah,
beat Molly Spears as well. I'm not losing to a girl. No offense, Molly.
yeah, Molly,
God,
yeah.
it's Des. It's Des listening. She's gonna tell me off for being sexist now.
It's all good. Brecky, yeah. So I guess this is kind of, yeah. So you think
The loser end.
you want to be a bit, you want to come above Molly, 72 seconds.
Yeah, I'm Brad. I want to beat Brad.
Okay. Well, let's give it a go actually. So I'm just going to open the game
Right.
now, and you remember the password. Don't say it on air, or we'll get
Yeah, I
random people
remember
trained.
my password.
Okay, so let me
Right, here we
get
go.
it
Let's
open.
get
So
embarrassed.
there is a little bit of connection issue we seem to be having, so hopefully the game should run smooth. Just FYI to people watching. So
Not showing.
yeah, I'm making the game now, so give me a second. I'm just trying to
Okay.
sort out the audio. I think it's a bit loud. Okay. You can also, if you have a Lightning wallet, you should be able to withdraw some sats at the end. Sponsored by Bitrefill.
Nice.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Let me just share the screen here. Not that one. Yeah, so the game, I made the game for you, so it should be visible.
Get it?
Hold on.
There we go.
Just trying to. There we go. We can see it.
Yeah, this is going to be embarrassing.
It probably
What
will
do
be.
I do? Is it three practice laps and then my lap, or?
Well, there's four
practice
laps. There's 4 laps, and basically I choose the best score out of 4, right? So it's the best lap. So
Okay.
yeah, the first lap doesn't really count because the first lap is basically, you're starting from zero speed, so it's like a practice. But from the second lap, you're coming in with some speed, so that's kind of the one that counts.
You would hope so.
Yeah, you are actually racing for Britain at the moment. We kind of have a country thing going on. So
God, put the additional pressure on.
just letting down Queen and country. Okay, let's start this.
Do I need sound?
No, you don't need sound. I'm streaming all the sound.
There we go. This is going to be embarrassing. Anyone looking is going to laugh and go, "What? How are you so crap, McCormack? Do I need the power up button? What do I do for power ups?"
There's no power-ups in this mode. Don't worry about it. It's all based on skill. There's no luck.
It's all bumpy.
Yeah, I think because you're doing a screen share call, it's taking up a bit of your graphics power. But it looks smooth from where we are. This is good. So okay, that wasn't good.
That wasn't good.
Yeah, I think a gamepad really helps. So maybe in the future we can get you back on with a gamepad.
Yeah, get one.
But the first lap is just practice, so just kind of get your bearings.
Oh, where have I gone now? Are the coins useful?
The coin, so each coin is worth like, I think maybe 10 sats. So you can withdraw your coins at the end. It's basically, it's Mario Kart, but the coins are actually Bitcoin. That's the idea behind it. So during MintGox, anybody can come on and play this game. We have like some online races where you race against others. And yeah, you collect the coins and can withdraw at the end. Also, the coins are used as weapons. So you can collect your coins and withdraw at the end, or you can throw them at other racers and lose less sats, but you have a better chance of, coming first or second for a larger Bitcoin prize.
Am I still on my first lap or on the second lap?
First lap, yeah. So you come into your second lap now. It's because you're crashing, it's slowing you down. Oh.
Well, that was crap.
Wasn't too bad. I've seen worse. Slow and steady wins the race. I think it's good advice here.
I'm crashing everywhere.
Yeah.
You have to tap the arrows, which is like hard.
Yeah. So down is brake as well, so that can help. People don't realize that.
Do people use the brake?
Yeah. You need to on these turns. These are kind of like bending turns. Also, I think the fastest score from the community is something like 43 seconds. It's crazy fast.
I don't know how somebody's done that.
Yeah, people accuse them of cheating until they sent me video evidence, and the racing lines are perfect.
Well, you definitely need a gaming pad to get the racing lines.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. This isn't too bad, actually.
What am I doing? What's the time?
Yeah, still got 2 laps to go after this.
What's my time on this one?
I don't know until you finish, so I'll see the times once you finish.
Oh no, I could be behind Brad.
Oh, he was pretty bad, but he hadn't played before. You've had a little bit of practice.
Oh, I did like a few laps and just got caned. Oh shit!
I think you're playing on the Mac. The keyboards aren't particularly good as well.
No, they're not. Not for this.
Okay. Got one. There is a cow that randomly appears. Watch out for him. Good. Do you drive in real life?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I guess you don't do racing lines though.
Yeah, I used to have a little sporty car. Not anymore. Not with the expensive kids.
Not even with the Bitcoin price?
Well, maybe soon enough.
Lambo or Tesla? Which way are you going?
Definitely Lambo.
Lambo. I actually, when I was learning to drive, I had like a gaming driving rig connected to Gran Turismo. So I used to practice that. And during my driving test, people would say, "Chris, stop doing racing lines." Failed my test.
I think I need to do this a gaming pad because I'm a good. By the way, on Mario Kart, I would fancy myself at beating anyone.
I think that's
almost unbeatable at Mario Kart.
I guess because this game is different than Mario Kart, but it looks similar. Maybe your brain tries to play how you would in Mario Kart.
I've always been a good gamer. Like, I've always been good at games, but it's just doing this keyboard thing. It's just
yeah.
just too difficult.
No worries. We'll get you back on sometime then, and we can try with the gaming pad.
Yeah.
Or you're free to compete in MintGox on Sunday as well.
What is there like an actual? Was it like a Grand Prix?
We normally do tournaments with like something like a million satoshis for the first prize. But this MintGox are actually focusing on Counter-Strike tournament. We're just doing like more casual races for this one. But we're planning a big thing for.
Last lap is my worst.
Are you coming to Bitcoin 2021? Do you think in Miami?
If the planes are flying and they're letting us in, I'm coming.
Okay, we're gonna do a tournament.
Awful.
We're gonna do a tournament there, so it's gonna be like sponsored by Cash App and everything, hopefully. So, not confirmed, I should say that. Anyway, let's see how awful it was.
Did I beat Brad?
Let me just expand this and let me take a look. Interesting. I'm going to make a note of your highest score, and then I'm going to tease you for a little bit.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Don't tell me I'm behind, Brad.
Your last one was the worst, but that's probably because I was asking you questions.
Yeah, the last one was awful.
So let me just get ready to
I think I beat Brad.
You think you beat Brad? So let me just do the screen share. Where are we? So what's Brad? Brad is 75.259. Okay. Well, the important thing is you have to beat no coin and net. That's the important thing. But
I'm not worried about net. I think I beat Brad. I don't think I have to lap over 75 seconds.
Yeah, Brad was playing. Yeah, Brad was playing on a computer. I think if you played on a computer, I think you could have even beat like Molly. But
I didn't beat Molly.
Well, let's just send a score. Update the user board.
Damn, I didn't beat Molly.
Let me refresh the page. And you lost. You were before Brad, but literally by what?
That's bullshit.
0.1
so
seconds. It's literally like one small thing you could have beat him.
Right, I'm getting a gaming. What kind of gaming pad do I need?
Xbox 360 will do. PlayStation 4 should work. PlayStation controller.
Oh, I can use my PlayStation pad.
Should work, yeah. If it doesn't work, let me know. I'll make it work. But yeah, it should work.
Right, listen. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to have my PlayStation pad connected. I'm going to have another go privately, and then I'm going to come back. And I want another go.
Oh, you're welcome on any time. Perhaps maybe we. Oh no, yours isn't a video podcast. I'm thinking maybe it would be good to kind of.
Mine is a video.
Well, maybe we could do it on yours then, just to give it, just so we don't.
A little bit more jazz.
Rehash the same.
I just want to
interview, but
we don't need to do the interview again. I just want to get my time again.
Okay, let me think about that because I'd have to open it up to other people to play again.
No. Let me just do it privately, just for my own sanity.
For your own
sanity.
My
controller. There's no way they can do. That guy's done 45. Did you say something's done?
Yeah. Oh, let me take.
Yeah, it's impossible to do with the.
No, they've definitely done it with a gamepad. It wasn't like I think consider it on a low end computer, and the important thing is you beat no coin and net, so you're better than no coin.
Yeah, but only just. I lost to Brad Mills as a Canadian.
Yeah. Well.
Molly's gonna give me some stick.
Like a Frenchman's on top, so that's always the. That's originally why I tried to get Brits on here to beat the Frenchman, but not yet. I need to think.
Somebody should have told me about the pad. I'm gonna just do some. I'm gonna do some private practice with the pad. I'm gonna let you know how I get on.
Awesome. Yeah, try that. Yeah, we can do it again for sure.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, this was fun.
Well, I'm just gonna finish up with a few questions from the audience. We actually got people asking some questions. Yeah. Sorry if you're okay for time.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, no worries.
I think I know who this one is from. I think this is probably from. I'm guessing it's from Jack from Thunder Games. But are you still off caffeine? How's it going?
No, I'm back on the caffeine.
So I think Jack from Thunder Games saw your podcast and he gave up caffeine or something because you tweeted it, and then he got very, very sick. But I saw his and I gave up caffeine from that, and I'm actually really good off the caffeine.
No, I
But
keep
you went
meaning
back on it. But
I didn't. I did it for 3 months, and then at Christmas I treated myself to a coffee, and I've been back on it since. But I am planning to come back off it again.
I guess some people's bodies are less tolerant or more addictive to certain substances. Like I stopped caffeine once and I got really sick, but this time I stopped it and I was headache for a day. But recently I've been okay. Like I have like one coffee now and then, but it's I was surprised. But...
I had 3 days of headaches when I stopped.
Oh yeah.
But I loved it. I don't know why I've gone back to it, but it makes me realize it definitely is an addiction. But I am going to stop again.
Does decaf not work? Because I have decaf coffees now. I think the ritual of making a coffee is kind of what I missed, right?
Yeah, you're all right, but like I just need to get off. Yeah,
Sure.
but I think the problem is if I have decaf, I just need to get back off them. I was great off them. But I think it's this lockdown. When I did it, we went on lockdown. I was going down the gym. Back on lockdown, it's hard to give stuff up.
Yeah. I think as a programmer, I can give stuff up easily because if you give something up, you just go programming, and programming is like an addiction. I don't know if you ever tried it. Like you kind of get stuck in there for 12 hours, and it's really good for people who want to fast because oh shit, I haven't eaten. It's like it gets like playing a game, right? It takes your mind off it. So maybe, but when you're at home and it's definitely hard.
Dude.
Yeah. So, can you tell us about his other projects, Defiance, Cast, and Never Edit? So I think we touched on Defiance a little bit, but I'm not familiar with Never Edit.
Never Edit is just a daily email newsletter. So I wanted to get into the news game. So we've just started with the newsletter. It's really just finding the best articles that I think Bitcoin people will care about. So it covers Bitcoin, but it also covers macro, covers tech, and just trying to bring together stuff that basically I want to read. Essentially,
nice.
If it includes all the stuff I want to read, then I'm happy, and I hope that means I'm producing something other people are interested in. And then I want to expand it into a news desk and actually start breaking news and writing original content. But for now, it's just a daily newsletter, and it's just something we're toying around with.
Okay, no, I hadn't heard of that. I'll definitely check it out. Where does the name come from? Is it just?
Do you know what? Nobody's actually figured it out, and I don't want to say because I might run it as a competition sometime, but it comes from something very cool.
Never read it. Okay, I just assumed it's something to do with immutability.
Yeah, everyone thinks that, but it's not.
Okay, nothing. Yeah, okay. Anyway, that'll be interesting. So yeah, do a competition. People get thinking away. Somebody also asked something about you printed out an NFT tweet. Can you show the NFT tweet? I don't know what that is.
That was a joke. I just think NFT is bullshit. So I printed somebody else's out, and I was like, look, I've created an NFT or something. I don't know.
This is actually quite an interesting kind of topical and controversial thing in the whole, I guess, blockchain gaming space. It's like half the camp which are very anti-NFT in gaming, and probably other half of the camp who are like very pro NFT in gaming. I've actually done NFT in gaming in 2014 before Ethereum, so I've kind of become a skeptic on it just by doing it. But yeah, I don't know.
I think it's one of those things where the people trying to sell it care more about it than the people who are going to buy it.
Oh, for sure.
But people
It's
what if you want to take your in-game item to another game? I'm like, does anyone really care? Really?
It's like it's valuable because I only made one of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like, my son plays games, and he was like, "Well, we already have like limited edition things." I was like, "No, but this you can prove it's limited on a blockchain." And he's like, "I don't care."
I actually have an article coming out about this, but I think there's something there with like some sort of like open database style file system where games can communicate on ownership, but like the whole fact that like the true ownership thing, like you have a spaceship token, so you own that spaceship. Well, not if the game developer removes a spaceship, you don't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's nonsense.
Yeah, but I think maybe there is something there, but not what people think. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
I like that tweet. I don't know if you saw it, but somebody was at a party and people were dancing to music, and there's a guy in the corner with his drink saying, "Nobody knows, but I actually own the NFT to this song." Yeah, didn't mean.
Jimmy Song just did a really good Medium post about NFTs. It's really good. It's well worth reading.
Yeah, I have to check it out because I actually have done token in gaming before, but when it was on Bitcoin, it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't going down the true ownership NFT route. And I don't think it should have been on Bitcoin, but I think there was maybe something there. But yeah, maybe I'll open up on that on another podcast sometime. I think that's all we have for questions. We've got a few strange ones I won't read out, but yeah. Anyway,
Strange or people being a dick.
I think it's strange. I suppose I don't really know the meaning. I can't.
Oh no, that's the one I want to hear.
No, I think it's like I heard Christopher Hitchens once say, "I don't understand the grammar of the question."
Fair enough.
Okay, I guess he's probably asking about what's your opinion on altcoins. So I guess that's what they're asking on the thing, but it sounds, I'm not sure. Maybe I'll just go with that. I don't know, like, because I guess you kind of feel like you're Bitcoin only, but most people who come into the blockchain space are kind of, they're interested by everything.
I'm kind of neutral on Monero. I don't mind Monero. I'm intrigued by Monero.
Is that for the privacy reasons?
Yeah, just because I think the privacy is easier for someone like me to achieve with Monero than it is for Bitcoin. I wouldn't hold it as a store of value, but would I perhaps, if I needed to buy something and it needed to be anonymous, would I perhaps use Monero? Yeah, perhaps I would. Yeah, perhaps I would, because if I was really nervous, because I don't know how to achieve good levels of privacy with Bitcoin. Not that the information isn't out there. I just think it's hard to do.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of trend that I've noticed in your podcast is trying to really understand the technical sides, like how to run a full node, but being honest about the challenges and
Yeah, and I know I'm not the only one, because I get all the emails from the listeners saying, "Yeah, Pete, I'm struggling with this shit as well."
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a kind of interesting challenge for Bitcoin. I think it's getting there. I know you've experienced playing around with was it Get Umbrella? But obviously you had a power supply issue, so that seems like better than the previous ones. But it's
a struggle, but
anyway,
I'll get there.
We'll get there. Cool. Anyway, thanks for coming on, and yeah, hopefully we'll have you back on to do a better time, and hopefully see you at a conference.
Hopefully soon. And when you see Des, tell her to stick it.
Okay, I'll tell her to stick it. Whatever. Okay, I guess she'll know what that means. I think Des is watching this now.
Des, stick it. I see you tweeting. Stick it.
We'll end on that note.
I love Des.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Right, dude. Appreciate it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, catch you later. Bye.